Shukant is familiar to all of you who have been at his art center. Shukant's art center is now located in the Montessori section of Kalakshetra in the very rooms. Uh, and it's such a special contribution that he's made, because he's been with us as part of the family at Kalakshetra, helping us through every stage, not only these 3 days. Thank you, Shukant. I think for those of us who live with children, we all remember that we must know a lot about nature, that we must know about the trees, the leaves, the plants that are in our environment. And we all come up short when children ask these questions. What is the name of this tree? And we do not know it. And we are really, really happy that this very special organization based in Chennai called Niral, which comes also out of the word Niral in Tamil means shade. This organization is actually so aligned to all our objectives and goals. They bring to urban children and to urban people a love for nature again, and they have actually led our tree walk on all these 3 days of the Congress. To Shobha Menon and all of you at Niral, if anyone is here from Niral, please do come up and accept our thanks. Thank you, Shobha. Thank you for coming. Oops. Thank you. Thank you, Chitra. And last, but very, very special. One morning, I have to tell you, I have to say this as a story. One morning, before prayers, we were at Kalakshetra taking photographs, getting ready for the Congress. And we came across Tangamani, going about her usual morning routine. A quick turn of the hand, dots and flowing white lines, and a kolam appeared. The click of a shutter captured this moment, and time stood still. This daily practice became symbolic to the work of the 26th International Montessori Congress. This photograph turned into our logo with the artistry of Vinay Jain. Today, we would like to honor Tangamani and her daily sadhana. Tangamani, vanga. With that, I think that we are ready for our evening plenary session. And Cheryl will be back to introduce Jayaji, whom we are very, very honored to have.
To introduce Jaya Rao, we've spent 3 days which seemed at one and the same time to go on forever and to pass far too quickly, considering sadhana in all the different aspects. Today, Jayaji will bring us to an understanding of Vedanta, Indian philosophy, and how it can be applied in a very modern context so that truly life and worship become 2 words synonymous with each other. Please welcome Jaya Rao.
Thank you. When we speak of sadhana, which means worship, anywhere in the world it is associated with leaving what you're doing, leaving the mundane, leaving the material, and retiring to another location, another place, another vocation in order to do the sadhana. But in the Indian culture, what is unique is that you convert what you are already doing into worship, and you saw a brilliant example of this at the dance as sadhana session just now. The simplest of things, the most ordinary things, can become extraordinary if you do it. And the Bhagavad Gita, which is considered an extraordinary scripture, says in just one word, with one word you can make the ordinary into an extraordinary event in your life, and that is Sarva Bhavena. Sarva Bhavena is very difficult to translate into English. There are some Sanskrit words that are impossible to translate because they are so deep. But Sarva Bhavena means, the closest translation is with all your heart and soul, with all your might, from the depth of your being. If you do whatever it is that you're doing, you convert it to worship. Action is fundamental to life. It is the most important thing for all beings, and the law in life seems to be act or perish. If you choose to be inactive, you simply wane away, you die. The quality of action that you perform also seems to be fixed in a way, because every one of us is born with a distinct talent, a definite inclination, an interest in life. Can you imagine an outstanding musician becoming a fund manager, or our own Leela Akka being a bank manager? It's incongruous. So you are bound by your own nature to perform the kind of action or the field of activity in which you are engaged. Yet, you have a wide choice, and that choice is, through action, you can evolve or devolve. Whatever it is that you're doing, you can use it to further destroy yourself, or you can use it to rise to the heights of perfection that only a human being is heir to. In the modern world, in every field of activity, the world demands excellence from us. Gone are the days 30, 35 years back when you came up with one brilliant action and that carried you through for the rest of your life. Today, every time a Roger Federer plays, he is expected to win. Every time a Sachin Tendulkar goes out to bat, he is expected to score a century. Every time you and I act, we are expected to come up with peak performance. So therefore, the search for excellence. What is it that makes for excellence? In other words, particularly in the field of sport, you find that the same sports person with the same fitness levels, the same skills, the same expertise, one day goes out and plays brilliantly, the next day he is devastated. What's the difference? Sporting coaches, sports persons who are committed to excellence spent a lot of time and effort in examining what is it that makes for perfection or excellence. And they found that when a sports person is in the zone, as they call it, you've heard the term? Have you heard the term being in the zone? No? Okay. When a sports person, or anyone for that matter, comes out with brilliant performance, they examined what is it that made the difference? What is it that made the person come up with brilliant performance? And across the board, they concluded that it is tranquility of mind. It is a calm, almost meditative state of mind that makes for excellence. So they concluded that the best performance comes from a calm mind. This is exactly what Vedanta, the knowledge, the wisdom of the Vedas, the oldest knowledge known to humanity, said thousands of years ago. What they said was, when the mind is calm, the thinking of your intellect is sharp and your actions brilliant. Now this seems easy enough, but when you try and implement it, the most difficult thing, it's easy comparatively to gain skills. It is easy comparatively to gain fitness levels. It is easy to learn how to play golf or tennis or any of the other skills, even though they're difficult. But the most difficult thing in the world is to keep that mind of yours quiet, tranquil, calm. And one of the objects of education, I believe all of us, directly or indirectly, are involved in education. One of the objects of education is not to instruct, but to inspire. Not to stuff the brain with some more information, but to illumine the soul. And when you inspire a person and you illumine the person's soul, the mind is quietened. The mind is made tranquil. So, for the rest of this session, we'll take a look at what makes for a calm mind. How do you get this mind calm? Do you all agree that all of us are in varying degrees of disturbance of mind? Have you ever tried to make that mind calm? Yes. The more you say, shh, keep quiet, it's like telling a bunch of 60 active, energetic kids, keep quiet. It's an almost impossible task. Yet, you can do it. So let's first take a look at what is it that motivates us to work. Every morning we get up and work, go out to work. What is the basic motivation that drives us to activity? Most of us are driven by what we call as deficiency motivation. One person says, I don't have enough money and so I'll work to get more money. Another person says, I don't have a big enough car. Third person says, I don't have a home. Fourth person says, I don't have. So all of us are motivated by what we don't have. Deficiency motivation. Vedanta says that every one of us is in a state of abundance. Not just ordinary abundance. Overwhelming abundance. You have enough and more. Then what's the problem? The problem is, in life, the best things in life come to you, number one, for free, number two, in abundance. So you have no value for it. Modern life brainwashes us to give value only to the things that we pay for and those that are in scarce, which are a scarce commodity. Like a diamond is rare, so you give value to it. Oxygen is in abundance and for free, so you have no value for it. Your family love is in abundance and free, you have no value for it. Your eyes have been given to you for free and 24/7 right through your life. You have no value for it. Vedanta teaches us to give value to the most precious things in our life which have been given to us in abundance, and then when you are aware of all the things that you have received, all the blessings that have been conferred on you, unasked for, unacknowledged, and definitely ungrateful for, you develop this irresistible urge to pay back to whoever has given it to you. Most of the things you may not know, some divine force has given. You don't know that divine force, but you certainly know that you have been blessed. And anybody who functions out of this abundance, his mind, his or her mind is calm. And then, whatever you do out of that calm mind in this spirit of wanting to pay back will be perfect. That is sadhana. Then, once you get into this abundance motivation, in what field must you put in your efforts? Vedanta said, identify your what we call as swadharma. Swadharma means core interest. As we saw earlier, every one of us is born with a distinct talent, a definite gift and interest, something which we have to contribute to the world. Identify that and invest your energies, your time, your effort in that field. But the world over, most of us select vocations based on what? Where will I make money? And we don't understand that all that the world is waiting for is merit. And anybody who has merit is amply rewarded. So don't worry about money. Worry about your merit. Focus on enhancing your merit, identifying your merit, enhancing your merit, enriching yourself with that merit. And the rewards will come to you. The world has always rewarded a meritorious person. There is not a single meritorious person anywhere in the world who has not been rewarded. When I say reward, please, I don't mean money. Yeah, there are lots of meritorious people who don't have money, but they don't want money. What they want, they get. You know, in Bangkok one year, when I went for a conference like this, I happened to meet a person who was a drummer, percussionist. And he sat there and gave a brilliant performance, and he got little drums and gave them to everyone, and he got the whole audience to play along with him. And then when I was having dinner with him, I found out that for 50 years of his life, the man was a carpenter. Incredible. Carpenter for 50 years. And then he says, while I was doing carpentry, my focus was on the rhythm. Things like this. And he says, for those 50 years while I was making furniture, I devised different beats. That is swadharma, core interest. The Gita says it is better to die performing your swadharma than to do paradharma activity. It is frightful to invest your energies in a field that is alien to you. Then, once you identify your field, what do you do with it? Your talent. Most of us are tempted to merely leverage that talent for profit. So a musician says, let me see how I can gain more money. Maybe I can get an award. Maybe I can, I don't know, whatever. Name, fame, adoration. That results in mediocrity. You see any number of people come up. It's so sad to see talented people come up and then they fall like 9 pins. Fall for the lure of money, fame, and so on. Apart from teaching them the skills, they also need to be taught how to handle the name and fame and money. It's not easy. Once it gets to your head, it's headier than the headiest wine. A few people resist this temptation and dedicate themselves to their particular field. Don Bradman played cricket not for money but for the sheer love of cricket. Ustad Bismillah Khan, one of the greatest musicians that this country has produced, played the shehnai. What do you call a shehnai? In English? You understand shehnai? It's a wind instrument. And the most part of his life he played it in a temple. He didn't play for money, and yet even today you associate the instrument with Ustad Bismillah Khan. He became larger than the instrument itself. So on and so forth. There are a few people. Einstein was a scientist who, when he first was invited by an American university and they asked him, what are your terms? He didn't understand what they were talking about. And he said some figure, and the university said, look, you won't be able to live on these terms. So unilaterally they increased his terms. He didn't have focus on money. Rare is the person who understands that the talent that he has is not his own. It's a God-given gift. And every time he sings or paints or dances or whatever it is that his talent is, he's acutely aware of the fact that some divine force has gifted it to him. And he sings or dances or plays only as an act of gratitude. He offers it as his act of gratitude to that divine force that gave it to him in the first place, and that makes for perfection. Anybody, anywhere in the world does it, the world will give you a standing ovation. Michelangelo, one of the greatest painters, when he was painting the Sistine Chapel, he broke his back literally and almost died. And his well-wishers asked him, I said, why are you killing yourself painting a corner of the ceiling that no one's going to see? And he said, you're mistaken. God will see it. The great king, emperor Akbar, was a lover of music, a lover of the arts. He had one of the greatest musicians in his court, Tansen. And one day he went to Tansen and said, Tansen, I want to listen to your guru. Who's he? Tansen said, forget it, my guru won't come to your court and sing. Akbar was a humble king, so he said, we'll go to where your guru is. And they went to a little village in which there was a small temple, and as they approached the temple, they heard the most exquisite music. There was Tansen's guru inside the temple singing. No audience. He was singing to the deity, as you just heard in the dance session. Akbar was enthralled. And when he went back to court, he asked Tansen, Tansen, you're a brilliant musician, I simply adore you. But your guru has a distinct edge over you. What's the difference? Tansen said, very simple, Maharaj. I sing for you, he sings for God. Now friends, every one of us is not born a Tansen. Every one of us is not born a Leela Samson. Every one of us is not born a Sachin Tendulkar or a Don Bradman. But every one of us can achieve perfection through this by offering whatever it is that you're capable of as your act of gratitude to that divine force. Then it becomes sadhana. There are 3 types of action that you can perform: selfish, unselfish, and selfless. Selfish action, I don't need to explain, we are all experts at it. Where the overriding factor is, what's in it for me? How do I benefit? It's all about I, me, myself. Unselfish action is where you set aside your selfish concerns, your self-centered interests, and dedicate yourself to a higher cause in your field. Why are we saying that we have to be unselfish? Because success doesn't just depend on your talent and intelligence. It is competence multiplied by hard work, multiplied by talent, multiplied by all the things, tangibles, divided by self-centeredness. So you might be extremely talented, you might be the most well-connected person, so on and so forth. But if you're self-centered, somewhere down the line, you'll get hit and hit badly. Why are we not picking up a higher ideal? Why are we not becoming unselfish? This is everybody knows. Because the fear is, if I work for you, what will happen to me? Take a look at physics. Physics endorses what we're talking about. Many of you are wearing blue. Oh, the lady there is wearing red. What makes it red? What makes anything red in color? I'm asking physics, not philosophy. When white light consists of 7 colors, when white light falls on it, it has the unique ability of absorbing all the other colors except red. It reflects red. Now we all know that red is the only color it does not have. Yet when you look at it, what do you say? It is red. Has it ever, yeah, you got it. Has it ever occurred to you, how is it that the 6 colors it grabs, it seems to lose, and the only color it gives, it seems to gain? And so is it in life. The more you act, the more you work with the spirit of giving, an attitude of giving. Just attitude, please. You don't have to give anything. You can't give anything. What can you give? Just the attitude of giving. By God, you get it back, and many, many times over. I often say you get it back not with simple interest, not with a banker's interest, but with divine interest. By the same token, you grab and you lose with divine interest. That is why Swami Ramatirtha, one of the greatest apostles of Vedanta, more than 100 years ago when he was lecturing in America, he said, the way to gain anything is to lose it. A brilliant statement. Grapple this to your soul. Remind yourself every day when you work and say, the way to gain anything is to lose it. Give it. The moment you pick a higher ideal, what happens? It unlocks your potential. It releases a great deal of energy, and it gives you peace of mind, happiness. Take examples. 8 years back, I don't know how many years back, Al Gore ran for president and lost to Bush. At that time, people referred to him as Al Bore. They didn't like him, they thought he was a bore. Last year, he was carried on prime time by almost every major television channel in the United States. Everyone wanted to listen to him. What's the difference? Earlier, he was working for himself. He wanted to be president. Last year, he was working for the environment, and that changed his personality completely. Here was a transformed individual. Many people in the West are surprised that how is it that an Indian manufacturer, India is not associated with car manufacture. Yet Ratan Tata, an Indian industrialist, came up with a car that cost $2,500, when the giants of automobile industry, car industry, the Japanese and the Americans failed. Why? Because what drove Ratan Tata was not just more profit, but because he wanted to help families of 4 who were going on a two-wheeler. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was an ordinary man. I am not saying it, he himself said it. He used to say, the only thing extraordinary about me are my large ears. Yet, the man rocked the world because he picked on a higher ideal. The moment he set aside his personal interests and decided to work for a larger cause, he became a Mahatma. He, in fact, became larger than the cause. Now let's take a look at us and our actions. When we work, when action springs from the body, you perform routine actions. You just go through the motions. You perform your job specifications. And you come back home and say, oh, I'm tired. Isn't that true? Have you ever questioned, what have I done that I should be tired? You are not here in Kalakshetra dancing. Then you can say you're tired. You sit in an air-conditioned car, go sit in an air-conditioned office, jump back into the air-conditioned car, no exercise, no activity, and you have the gall to say, I'm tired. What is it that makes you tired? On the other hand, take a look at kids. A 2-year-old child, the younger the child, the more energetic it is. You know, take it as an experiment. Do it only when you're alone with a child. Do everything that the child does. At least try and do everything that the child does. The movements. Impossible, right? In 5 minutes you'll be tired. And the child can go on the whole day without getting tired. What's the secret? The secret is when you work only for yourself. See, what tires you out is the selfishness. What tires you out is the ego. What tires you out is the worries over the past and anxiety for the future. Will I get a wife? Will I not get a wife? Is what tires you. A child has no such problems. Child doesn't worry, will I get married? Will I not get married? Child doesn't worry, will I go to school? Will I get admission? Will I not get admission? No such hassles. Happy. When the action springs from the mind, when you are inspired to act, you know, just a while ago, as you all know, I'm from Mumbai, Bombay, and we've been through one of the worst terror attacks. And immediately after, England and India were playing cricket. And immediately after the terror attacks, they played a test match, and Sachin Tendulkar was absolutely out of the runs. He wasn't playing well at all. And suddenly, where was it, in Chennai? Yeah. He came up with a magnificent century. And he said, I dedicate this to the people of Mumbai. So what it is the moment you feel emotionally inspired to act, he says, nobody can take away the sorrow of a person who has lost a loved one. No one can replace grief and torment. But as a cricketer, all that we can do is score well and offer that. That's what happens. Look back into your life. Any time in your life you feel emotionally inspired, you somehow break through your physical limitations and come up with magnificent performance. Isn't that true? But the problem is, our inspiration comes once in a lifetime. There is no constancy. That is what the Gita says. The two qualities that make for excellence are dhriti. Dhriti, consistency of purpose, doggedness. Every day you find your inspiration. And utsaha, whatever you do, you must do with enthusiasm. The enthusiasm of a child. When a child wakes up, it's full of enthusiasm. Go a step further. Find an intellectual ideal. to work for, a conviction. When you're working for your country, tennis players, when they play individually in the Wimbledon, it has a different flavor altogether. When the same tennis player plays in the Davis Cup where he's playing, he represents his country, it's a completely different feeling. Then you're inspired to work for your country. Go a step further. With your subtle intellect, you are following your conscience like Mahatma Gandhi did, because he was fighting not for his personal glory. He wasn't even fighting a political end. He was fighting for righteousness. He was fighting for justice. And that's what gave him success. Because if you take a look at the independence movement, they had no economic support, they had no political godfather, they had nothing going for them except the will to establish justice and truth. Now, conscience is something that is unknown to us nowadays, the world over. So, that's what it is. Coming back, all you need to do is perform yajna, sacrifice. This is an age-old Vedic ritual that was given a completely new meaning in the Gita by Krishna to Arjuna. Here he is sitting in the middle of a battlefield asking him to perform yajna. He's surely not asking him to start a fire. There are enough fires burning there anyway. What is he asking him to do? He's completely internalized this. This yajna represents sacrifice. And he says, he dramatizes it and says, when the Creator created the human being, he gave the human being a special birthday gift. And that is the capacity to sacrifice, which no other creature can do. When you are walking out of the stadium, this hall, you can say, after you. If 2 dogs are going, no dog will say after you. It doesn't have the capacity. Now, you may or may not exercise that option. You might say me first and push. That's a different thing. You have the choice. And then he says, with this, may you prosper. What does it mean? When he says, with this, may you prosper, it's a perfectly innocuous statement. What he means is, without sacrifice, it is impossible to prosper. And all of us, all over the world, are desperately trying to prosper without sacrifice. And then he says, let this be the Kamadhenu of all your endeavors. You know who Kamadhenu is? A mythological, imaginary cow supposed to reside in heaven. And what is so special about this cow is that if you go to Kamadhenu and express your wish, any number of wishes, no limit, Kamadhenu says, Tathastu, means your wish is fulfilled. So please don't ask me. Many times I go and when I speak about this, the audience after the lecture comes very quietly to me and says, can you give me the address of Kamadhenu? Address of Kamadhenu is sacrifice. You work in a spirit of service and sacrifice and all your wishes will get fulfilled, says he. How? If you don't believe me, try it. Vedanta is an experimental science. All your life you've lived a certain life with chasing your desires and you know what's happened. You know where you are. Just for once, give up your selfishness and say, let me work for something beyond me. Let me work in a spirit of service. Let me, whatever action you're doing, say, let me see how I can be of service to you. Let me see if I can add value to you. Instead of saying, how do I benefit? And see what happens. There was a business conference, like you have a conference here. There's an international business conference. And in the coffee break, the 3 delegates were discussing how they share their profits with God. How much of their profit do they give in charity? So one guy said, the, the Englishman, said, I draw a square on the ground, collect all my profits, I throw my profits into the air, whatever falls within the square, I give to charity. What falls outside the square is mine. The Arab said something similar, except that he said, I draw a triangle. Whatever falls in the triangle is given to charity, what falls outside the triangle is mine. Then came the turn of the Indian. The guy was scratching his head because he had never done charity. But Indians are quick thinkers, creative. So suddenly he hit upon an idea, looks at the other two and says, hey, you guys, you're small-minded. So they said, what do you mean? Don't you know everything belongs to God? So they said, yeah, but what do? You give everything in charity? He says, yes. Then they asked him, but how do you live? He says, you don't understand, it's like this. I collect all my profits, everything, black, white, everything, and throw it up into the air. Whatever God wants, He keeps. What falls down is mine. So don't be like that. Now, there are 3 grades of human beings, says Vedanta. Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic. Many people here are non-Indian, so we call it grade C, B and A. Don't worry yourself about the terms. Grade C, he says, is a thief. And sometimes you wonder, so how is he calling me a thief? He says, grade C is a guy who helps himself to what the system gives without even a thought of repaying. And when I first read this, I said, I don't belong to this category, I'm not a thief. But when you think about it, you realize, to your horror, that yes, I belong to this category. There are many things in life that I take, I enjoy, I receive, without so much as a thought of who gave it and how do I repay. Grade B, the Rajasic type, he says, cooks but eats sin. What does it mean? A person who goes out and works the whole day and is after profit and more profit and more profit. He earns the profits, but he doesn't enjoy. The world over, you look at people who work 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, they never enjoy what they earn. They earn a lot of money. And you go to their homes, and their palatial houses, 15-bedroom homes and this, that and the other by the riverside, and they have a beautiful yacht. So you go down to the riverside and say, when was the last time you took a ride in the yacht? He says, never. I don't have the time. So who goes for a ride? You and me, the guest, or the son-in-law. He has a private jet, he sits in it, but he is tormented by, what will the shareholders say, and I have a board meeting, and what will that say? He can't enjoy the jet, he can't even enjoy his family and the children. So he cooks, but he eats sin. Sin in Vedantic terminology means mental agitation, disturbance, stress. Then who enjoys life? Grade A, who eats the remnants of sacrifice. What a brilliant term. When you work in a spirit of service and sacrifice, the greatest reward will be given to you. And what is that greatest reward? You'll be successful, you will be happy, and you will grow into a towering personality. So this is what it is. The spirit of service. When you work in a spirit of service, nature conspires to serve you. I quote from an English poem by William Wordsworth, which we learnt in school, called Daffodils. He says, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd a host of golden daffodils. And the rest of the poem, he goes into raptures about the daffodils. You know what it means? I wandered lonely as a cloud. The cloud epitomizes the highest form of giving. The cloud, in giving, gives of itself so much that there's nothing left. And then what happens? You float on high over vales and hills. The pinpricks of life, the little joys and sorrows of life have no impact on you because you're in a different realm altogether. And then, all at once, unexpectedly, you come upon a host of golden daffodils. The poet doesn't look for the daffodils, he doesn't even know they exist, but then he comes upon them. And that's what happens to you. You meet with serendipitous experiences. If you don't know the meaning, look up the dictionary. What does it mean? Sudden, unexpected moments of intense joy. Take a look at nature. The spirit, every element in nature seems to work in a spirit of service and sacrifice. If you were to interview the sun and say, why do you give heat and light? Have you heard of anyone who has got an energy bill from the sun directly? It gives because it must. That's its nature, to give. Flowers give fragrance. Have you ever heard of a flower that gives fragrance when the master is around and withdraw the fragrance when nobody is there? The flower gives fragrance even if there's no one to appreciate it. Rivers give vitality, clouds give rain. No element in nature looks for a profit except the human being. Therefore, no element in nature needs an antidepressant except the human being. Think about it. Now comes the 6-point path to perfect action. How do you bring about perfect action? You generate energy by the intellect directing all your activities to the chosen goal, whatever be your goal. When a musician fixes music as a goal, the notes, the beats go on in his mind all the time. 24/7, he's just totally dedicated to music. It is never that sometimes he sings off key. Then the mind must surrender to the ideal. You must feel for that ideal. Your ideal, your vocation must be sacred to you. Haven't you seen a tabla player? To a tabla player, the tabla is sacred. If you go and kick it, he gets extremely upset. Is your work a worship to you? Is it sacred to you? Is the question. And the body must act dynamically. The more you act, in fact, Vedanta says exercise must be a daily routine in our lives. Those of you who exercise every day will have noticed that on days when you exercise, you're energetic, full of beans throughout the day. On days when you don't exercise, you're dull, you're tired even before you wake up. And this energy that you've generated gets dissipated into 3 channels: past worry, future anxiety, excitement in the present. There is not enough time to go over it, but I would strongly recommend that those of you who are interested in this, pursue it. Because what you're seeing here is the equivalent of a promo of a movie. When you see the promo of a movie, what happens? You can't tell what the movie is about. But it does one thing to you. It arouses your curiosity enough for you to see the movie. And in the same way, what we are offering to you is a promo of what Vedanta can do to you. Convert you, transform you from an ordinary, stressful individual to an extraordinary, outstandingly peaceful person. So, think about it. Ego. You get rid of your ego by acknowledging the role of others and the divine force. Now, one last thing before we conclude. All of us are chasing happiness in the world. Do you know where it lies? Do you know how to gain that happiness? Vedanta gives a simple formula for happiness. And if you forget everything else that I've said so far, don't forget this. The formula for happiness is happiness equals desires fulfilled divided by desires harbored. You got that? Simple formula. So if you want to increase your happiness, if you just go along with the formula for now, what must you do? Correct. Either you jump the gun, either increase the numerator, that is, increase the number of desires you fulfill, or decrease the denominator, reduce the number of desires you harbor. What are we trying to do? Where is our focus? On the numerator, right? So you say, I have a desire for clothes, and you go out and buy them. I have a desire for a watch, you go and buy it. I have a desire for this, that, and the other, and you buy it. And you have fulfilled quite a few desires. So your numerator has gone up. But has your happiness increased proportionately? No. You're saying no. Why? Because without your knowing it, insidiously, the denominator has also increased. So Vedanta says, in fact, even mathematically, the numerator is irrelevant. It doesn't matter how many desires you fulfill. What matters is the denominator. If systematically you bring down that denominator, your happiness increases in leaps and bounds. And if your denominator comes down to zero, what happens? Infinite happiness. Now you are not inspired by this because you equate desire with objects of desire. Vedanta only says rise above desire. Vedanta does not say don't have object of desire. You know, there's a beautiful story about Krishna that is portrayed through music, through art, through dance, through every form, conceivable form in India, and that is that of Krishna and Kaliya. Kaliya was a demon, multi-headed serpent that resided in the river. And one day when Krishna was playing with his friends by the riverside, this Kaliya made its appearance and everyone fled in terror. Krishna did the opposite. He jumped into the river and started dancing on its multiple heads and killed the Kaliya. The story goes, as Kaliya died, the wives of Kaliya came and paid homage to Krishna. On the face of it, it's an absurd story. We all heard it in childhood. And at that time, we were wide-eyed and jaw wide open. You know, children get fascinated. Then later you dismiss it as just a story. But it has a deep philosophy behind it. Kaliya represents desire in the lake, in the river of your mind. When Krishna jumps, if you surrender to Krishna, you have the power to, Krishna means a higher ideal, you have the power to overcome the lower desires. And when you overcome a desire, when you rise above a desire, the object of desire comes to you, comes and pays homage to you. Try it. See, in other words, the object of the story is, when you rise above desire, you turn your back on a desire, the object of desire comes to you. You chase after the desire, the object runs away from you. Why? I don't know. But that it does, I know. If you don't believe me, try it. When you get into an aircraft, in India, they still give you a meal. In America, they give you water. And the air hostess comes to you and say, what will you have? And you say, nothing. Nothing is something they don't understand. So they say, what? You don't want any food? And they'll come and offer you cookies, and they'll offer you fruit, and they'll offer you everything that is denied to other passengers. Experiment with it the next time you're on a flight. You get all the goodies when you say no thank you. It's the same thing in life. Any desire, you chase after it, somehow it eludes your grasp. You turn your back on it, it's given to you on a platter. That is the story behind Kalia. So this is the formula. Now the question is, how do you overcome desire? There is a hierarchy. The hierarchy is, physical desires are the lowest, then come emotional, intellectual, spiritual. Suppose I were to tell you, at the end of the session, I'm going to give you the best Belgian chocolates. I'm not, it's just an example. And you say, oh thank you, I love chocolates. But when I give it to you, you don't eat it. You put it away. And I say, I thought you loved chocolates. You say, of course I love them. Then why aren't you eating it? I'm taking it home for my child. And you go home and you give the chocolate to the child innocently eats the chocolate without offering you a bite. Do you feel deprived? If you say yes, you're a stepmother. The desire to eat the chocolate completely vanishes because the emotional desire of watching your child enjoy the chocolate is so great, so fulfilling. Go a step further. When a student is gripped by the desire to educate himself, let's say do an MBA or join an engineering college, he or she voluntarily gives up physical, in India, the teenagers are thoroughly pampered. In Bombay, there was a girl who was living in the lap of luxury, and parents, grandparents, everybody would spoil her. Suddenly she vanished. I said, where is she gone? IIT entrance coaching to Kota. I said, Kota? Where does she live? Horrible accommodation. What kind of food does she have? Terrible. Who does she have for friends? She doesn't get on with anybody. So what is happening? Physical desires are getting frustrated, emotional desires are not being met with, yet she is there and quite content because she wants the intellectual satisfaction of getting into an engineering college. These three we understand. Go one step further. And as a poet says, when the nostalgia of the infinite gets to you, when you become aware of a larger force, some divine force that's taking care of not just you and me on earth, the solar system, which is hurtling at something like 600,000 miles an hour through space, the Milky Way galaxy and hundreds and thousands of galaxies in the universe. When your eyes open to that, you can never come back to all of this. And then whatever you say, whatever you do, strikes a chord in the listener, in people around you, in people all over the world. And that is true sadhana. That is true worship. Thank you very much for giving us a patient listening. And for those of you who are from out of India, we wish you bon voyage and welcome you again and again to this land of the spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayaji. Thank you very much. A few announcements, as always. The delegates from Bombay, some of you have expressed the desire to have a group photograph. Could you all please collect at the AMI stall immediately after the announcements are finished? Another announcement, our valedictory function starts at 6 o'clock. Please, could you be back in your seats 5 minutes before time at 5:55 to start this function. A last announcement. Those of you who would be interested in visiting Olcott House, where Montessori lived during her time in India, please meet at the main gates of the Theosophical Society at 7:30. And these are opposite Malar Hospitals. That's where you'll find the main gates. If you meet at the main gates at 7:30, there will be somebody there who will be able to take you around. AM, 7:30 AM, tomorrow morning, 7:30 AM, tomorrow morning. Unfortunately, we are not able to arrange transport. Please make your way